program is an MS Views and News program. It's called MS Today. This is a new series of programs that we will be doing with the content that will be at today's program will be discussed at other programs around the United States. This is in addition to our other series that we do live called A Compass to MS Care, and that is for those in underserved communities and in rural America. So we do welcome everybody here today. I want to give you all a round of applause for being here. Yay, everybody, do that. Great. All right, our sponsors for today, Novartis, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Horizon, who's a new name in the forum, all right, but Horizon's with an NMO drug. All right, we have Banner Life Sciences. That's a new drug for the MS community, which you'll probably hear about later on. We have JANSSEN, who has another new drug in the MS community. These all came about in the last 2 years. Also, Bristol-Myers, that I already mentioned, also has a medication that came out at the beginning of the pandemic and is also for the MS community. And then we have our local Infinity Clinical Research, and I hope that you got a chance to stop in and see them. They're in the back of the room, so if you have to stop in later on, I'm sure you could go back there and see them. So, going forward, today's program, Jeff Segal is going to be up here talking with you about stretching, strengthening, and exercise, all right? And he might call on somebody to come up and assist. So when he's ready to do that, raise your hand and let's see who he picks. And I'll be back with you during Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for everybody that's here that showed up. And if you didn't show up, thanks for staying home. It's been a while since I've been on a stage, but it's just as flat as the ground. So as long as I don't walk too far, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Don't get nervous. I'm not going to fall off the stage. But if I do fall off the stage, I promise you one thing: I'll get back up. My background is exercise physiology and nutrition and life. So that's what we all share, right? Life, we're all alive. Just making sure everybody's pretty still. I may say something funny that might not be funny to you, but if it's funny to me and I'm the only one laughing, join me, please. I don't like to do things alone. When it comes to exercise, fitness, and wellness, now is when I'm serious. There's one thing that's in common when it comes to success, no matter what you do, whether it be exercise, whether it be art, music, or whatever you do for a living. It's consistency. If you're consistent at something, you will improve, or you will learn to do it properly, and you will keep it going. So I talk about diet and exercise because we fuel our body with what we're gonna use for energy, right? So if you eat, you are what you eat is true. So if you're eating garbage, that's how you're gonna feel when you try to move, or when you fail at moving. So if you guys, being MS patients, were to eliminate all the bad stuff, do you guys know what's bad? What's bad is doing nothing when you can do something. It's eating the fried versus the baked. It's eating the cookies versus the fruit, whatever it might be. The bad stuff is the bad stuff. So if you know what's bad, then you understand what healthy eating and healthy living is like. Healthy living is doing all the right stuff. Don't do things that are stupid, and to act and be as active as your body allows you to be, and find something to do that's enjoyable when you're doing that. MS in a whole comes with a whole lot of problems, but it also comes with a whole lot of solutions. And over the past 24, 25 years, I've been working on those solutions. And I can tell you at first, it was all about me. I wanted to find out how I can solve my problems. But it was in turn so I can help you with your problems, because one thing we share is problems, right? And some of the problems that you guys have, I have. And some of the people in here who don't have MS share the same problems with the person next to you who does have MS. It might be because it's their problems and you guys are together and you guys share the experience. Not too many people have MS alone, and if they do, it's difficult because you need somebody, you need support. You need support as much as you need support in a shoe, and to support in a shoe, if you wear a shoe properly and a shoe with the proper support, you might avoid certain injuries and certain things that, that may occur. And the most comfortable shoe in the world with the best support does you no good if it stays in your closet, right? Just like exercise equipment, just like gym memberships, just like basically anything you do. If you do it, it works. If you don't do it, you'll never know if it works. How many people in here have spasticity, tightness, cramping, tremors, any of the above that I just said? Raise your hand. Okay, if you don't have MS, you could probably raise your hand, because if you don't have MS and you never had a muscle cramp, I'm going to call you out. I don't believe you. What do you do when you get a cramp or when you get spasticity? What do you do? Someone just blurted out. Yeah, if you can stand up, you stand up. Yeah, try to stretch it out. Okay, those are two. You nailed it. If you can stand up and it's something in your leg, you stand up. If you can stretch it out and you know how to stretch it out, stretch it out. The problem comes when you go to stretch it out and you think you know how to do it and you don't. That's when you tear muscles. So tightness can be prevented or can be dealt with, and this is a bad word for MS, but with heat. Heat loosens things up. So in turn, if you're going to stretch and you're going to work on flexibility, it's important to warm up. Do a warm up and get yourself going, get yourself active, so the muscles are warmed up and loosened up. I've said this several times. Almost every time I've given a presentation, I've talked about freezing a rubber band. You know what happens if you freeze a rubber band? It gets frozen. Now, when you freeze a rubber band, it does, but when you go like this to stretch it out, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to either snap or it's going to get long, and when you let it go, it's not going to get as short as it once was. Rubber bands are like our muscles. So if our muscles get overstretched, you can have problems. Just like when you train, when you're lifting weights and doing stuff, if you overdo it, you can have problems. And if you overdo it for a long enough period of time, you're going to regress. That happens a lot with athletes. It does not happen a lot with MS patients. We're trying to get you guys to move more, not trying to slow you down. And I think that the fear of having a problem invoked by exercise is one of the main reasons why people stay away from it who have MS. But then again, people who don't have MS don't exercise too. So you're just like everybody else. The word exercise does not sound fun. But when you do it with somebody that makes it fun, you're more likely to do it. So flexibility. I'm going back to the flexibility. When you have a lesion or something going on in your brain, I'm going to try to keep this as lay as possible so it's understandable. But let's just say somebody tries to say a word and it gets stuck on the tip of your tongue. Ever happened to any of you? Yeah. Even if you don't have MS, I'm sure you've forgotten something before, and if you haven't, you ought to be writing a book about everything there is. And when that word doesn't come out, it's because there was some kind of discrepancy or some kind of friction or something that didn't allow that message to get to your tongue and back to your brain and back to your tongue and out. Same thing goes with your muscles. That's why we get stiffness. That's why maybe one leg won't lift if you don't want it to. That's why a muscle might cramp. A muscle might cramp because it's getting too much information. That's fake news. When a muscle gets fake news, the other muscle says, hey, this is my turn. And then the other one says, no, it's my turn. And that's called muscular co-contraction. So if my bicep was to flex and my tricep didn't work properly, that's reciprocal innervation, that's calling on the muscle to work, but the other muscle has to work in order for it to look big. You know, if it looks big when you flex them both. You see, you flex them both, you got this and this flexing. But if I didn't flex this and this together, this would keep going. It would go right through my shoulder. So there's a reason for both of them to work at the same time. But when you're asking your arm to pick something up and your tricep gets the same message, you get stuck here. And you see people that, or your leg gets stuck in the position, then you're doing this because you can't bend at the knee. And what is that? That's spasticity. People don't think about it. They say, no, I don't have, I've had so many disputes with people who I've said, you know, that spasticity can be worked on, you can do stuff for. I don't have spasticity, I'm just stiff. Okay. Or I get, someone will do this. I'll do an exercise, and if somebody has an injury, I want to see if that injury is problematic on the day that we're working together so I don't hurt them and they don't get hurt. So I'll do a bunch of stuff, push with one hand, with this hand, push with one hand, and if they do this while they're doing that, and then look at me and I say, oh, so that caused pain. They say, no, that was tightness, not pain. So I shake their hand and squeeze it as hard as I can, and they say, ah! And I say, no, that was tightness, not pain. So you have to understand, if something stops you from doing something or something jolts you, that's painful. This goes back to the dark ages of MS when they said MS didn't come with pain. But if you're saying that MS comes with spasticity and not pain, then you don't have a sensation, which could be the case too. So I'm going to show you a bunch of stretches that are important. Now, before I get to the stretches, I keep saying before I get to the stretches, I hope I don't keep saying that and then Stuart says, you know what, you're out of time. But for me, I'm personally, and I do not want you guys to do what I say because I do it, and I also want you to realize when you hear something from somebody else, I'm specifically telling you, don't do this because I said it. I happen to do it. It's not a bad thing, but you hear this from people online about their medicine and they take a new medicine or someone says it's working and do that. You should, when you hear someone write, you should be doing something. Why? Why should you? Why should I be doing something? You're not my doctor. That's when someone says, well, it worked for me, and then somebody's friend will call you, or you'll get a call from somebody saying, my friend just told me about this new medicine. Why aren't you on it? Have you heard about it? Oh, come on. Same thing. I got probably 500 to 1,000 emails from people I've known over the past few months informing me that Epstein-Barr virus has a correlation with MS. And I was about to tell them that, you know, really that was one of the first things I learned 25 years ago was that's one of the things, Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein-Barr virus, you know, where you lived up to the age of 15, all those different things. We know a lot more than people think, right? I mean, we're MS specialists as patients. So don't listen to somebody that says this worked for me just because it worked for them. Listen to your doctor. They're not a doctor. And if they're not giving you proof and all that stuff, chances are 9 out of 10 of you don't understand how to read research. And then out of that one person, they might understand how to read it, but they may not understand what bad research looks like. Bad research starts out with a group of subjects, and at the end point, the group of subjects and what they were looking for is a complete different thing than what they came up with, but the conclusion is what they're telling you about. Does that sound confusing? Because if you go to school for 10 years, you can call yourself a doctor and you can explain it in detail, but you're not going to get it in 3 sentences on Instagram. Same thing for exercises, and same thing for the models who are doing the exercises, who've been doing them their whole lives, and somebody wants that piece of equipment because they want to look like that model. Guess what? It took them 10 years of nonstop, 5 to 6 days a week of doing 2 hours of exercise. So what I was going to say that I do that I didn't want other people to do unless they're able to, and this isn't the solution, but for me, and this has science behind it, the best flexibility and the most improvements in flexibility I've ever had in my life are from doing exercises in their full range of motion, because that's functional stretching. That's functional flexibility. That's flexibility that you don't only have to touch your toe, but you have to touch your toe and get back up. So there was a time I couldn't touch my toe. Now I have exercises I do where I have to have something like a stage here so I can put something further down than my feet. But if you did stuff like that, or you do a press, you're stretching your whole side. Or if you're doing a fly, or a bench press, you're stretching your chest. Your chest should stretch. I'm looking at so many people with upper cross syndrome, rounded shoulders, can't get deep breaths. If you were to do the right exercises and then maintain the right posture, which everybody in here has perfect posture for the next 30 seconds, and if you do all those things, you're going to breathe better. So 3 things that are important to sustain life. Breathing. We all breathe. I guarantee you half of you aren't doing it properly because you're breathing with your ribs and not your diaphragm. But if you breathe with your diaphragm, you're going to get more oxygen to what needs to work. Without oxygen, nothing works. Sleep. None of you are doing that right now, which is a good thing, but I hope you did last night, and drinking a lot of water. Do you guys drink enough water? Without those three things, or any of those three things, you're dead. Think about that. So the way I was saying is to get more flexible is to do stuff in full range of motion. But if you can't, and you want to do static stretching, when you think of stretching, you think of static stretching. So what I'm going to show you is a bunch of different stretches, starting with the most problematic areas and taking questions from people. If somebody wants me to do a stretch or show a stretch that works a particular part of the body. I can tell you this, that most people in this room don't have a lot of cramping in their quadriceps. You may have it, but not a lot. Do many people in the room have cramping in this part of your leg? No. Do you know why? Because you're always stretching it when you're sitting down. We take advantage of sitting down, right? We've mastered that. So if you can right now, just to prevent the back side of your legs from tightening up, which are always shortened when you're sitting down, that's why you get cramps here, and that's why you get cramps here, and in your lower back. So if everybody is willing to stand up right now, I'd really appreciate it if you stood up, and if you can reach for the sky, reach for the sky. And that's a stretch. And tell me you don't feel a stretch. Okay, you're stretching your body, you're stretching your abs, you're stretching your butt, your legs, everything's on stretch because you're standing. And you know what you just did? You guys can have a seat now. You guys stood up one more time today than you would have had I not said that. So this is all working out for the better. So I'm going to show you some stretches. First of all, I want if the first time I hear three parts of the body that are the same, I'm going to show you how to stretch that. So what parts of your body do you have stiffness, tightness, or muscular co-contraction, or spasticity, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's tomato, or a stretch. What areas cause problems for you? Somebody raise your hand and tell me. Calves. Your calves? Okay, so that's anybody else? Hamstrings. Anybody else? Neck. Okay. So, and the groin? Okay, so the groin area, now I'm going to tell you, the most common muscles to have spasticity are flexing muscles, flexors. A flexor is something that brings something closer to your body. So like a bicep, a hamstring, the muscles you guys had said. A calf can be considered a flexor, but plantar flexor. So to stretch a calf, I'm going to go over that. And then after I do a calf stretch, I'm going to ask for a volunteer, and I'm going to show you some static stretching that you can do. But remember, static stretching, you have to be careful. And if you're stretching on your own, remember I said you have to do it right. The one thing that I want to really stress is do not fight through pain and do not bounce. Do not try to reach for a limb and do this, because that's ballistic. And if you keep doing that, slowly but surely, you're going to tear the whole muscle. So for the calf, I'm going to start with a series of calf stretches. And after the calf, I'll get somebody up here to help. The soleus is the muscle that does this while your knee's bent, with some contribution from the gastroc. And the gastroc and soleus together would be here. That's the bigger muscle. So to stretch it, a simple stretch is just to put your foot on the ground and push it down. It's better to have your legs straight though. If you can have your legs straight and point your toe up, you can do that. If you have something to put around it, now this could be anything from a towel to a shirt that you don't want, and pulling it towards you. If you feel it behind your knee, you're doing too much. That's a tendon. Anytime you feel a stretch behind the knee, that means that you're doing more harm than help. So bend the knee if you have to, or lighten up on the stretch. Those are two of them. Another one, standing, would be just to put your leg behind you, lean forward, holding on to something. Does everybody understand how that stretch would help? Do I need to show you any more about that, or can I move on? Okay, so can I have a volunteer? Somebody raise their hand. All right. You're not going to be able to eat, though, if you do. Are you okay with that? Okay. Come on up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of stretches for you. You got to come up around the side of the stage. And before you do that, all right, do you consent to be video recorded? Because there's a video. Yes? Okay. The first thing I'm going to do here with him is, what's your name?
Segal.
Was it?
Segal.
Shigun.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
What I want you to do first is have a seat on here. And if you're worried about doing it, hold on to my arm.
I got it.
Don't tell me which one, but do you have, first off, are you a patient? Yes. Good. An MS patient? Yes. All right, everybody here is a patient, right? We were all born and we all go to the doctor, so. Okay, so what I want you to do is, to the best of your ability, pick one of your legs up off the ground.
That's my right. That's my better.
Now, don't tell me which is better. Now, I guarantee you, well, you just spilled the beans to me, but does it seem like it'd be harder to do that one?
Yes.
Watch this. Lift it. Which leg do you feel more secure when you lift with your body? And this is your bad one, right? Doesn't that, it probably doesn't make sense to you. Why? Well, if that's your if that's your good leg, that's your bad leg, right? But if that's your good leg, while your good leg is on the ground, you're stable. So that's why you chose to keep this one down. That's why you made the choice you did. Okay, now I want you to hop up here. So that's what I do with people. When I first work with somebody to figure out which side of their body has an issue, that's not as up to par as the other side. So that was a quick thing rather than doing all kinds of tests and stuff. Just sit on a ball, you do that, you can tell which way the body goes. Where you have the most tightness? Where in their left leg? Hamstring? Okay. Would you mind laying down? Okay, so the hamstring and calf he was talking about. I'm going to show you what I do for the hamstring and calf as far as stretching goes. I showed you the calf. However, this is the same thing as the other one. Hold on to that. So I'm going to let him do it. So you pull on that. Can you feel your calf stretching? If you don't feel stretching, that's just because it's the band's not strong enough. So if that didn't work, so you can let go. What I would do is this. Okay. Okay, so first what I would do is, you see how his leg is on my elbow and shoulder? I'd put my hand here. Can you feel a stretch right now? Do you feel it into your knee or just up to your knee? You feel, okay. So for him, this is his range where he can feel it. If I were to go up higher, you feel it more? A little. So okay, so I can go up a little bit higher, but I have it rested on my shoulder so I can always lower it. If you feel it behind your knee, let me know. You do. Okay, so you don't want to feel it behind your knee. The other thing you could do is bend the knee a little bit. You still feel a stretch, but not behind the knee? Okay. So that's for the calf. You guys got that? If you're doing a calf stretch with somebody else, you can put that leg down. Now I'm going to show you the hamstring stretch. When I stretch the hamstring, and I'm going to come to the other side of him, I make sure the other leg is bent so that way it doesn't put too much pressure on his back. A lot of people have hip problems in addition to other problems. So what I like to do is if I'm going to put my head into this on one side of his leg, I want to go medial on the inside part because doing it on the outside, there's a greater chance of dislocating a hip, especially if you've had a hip replacement. So I'm always going to err on the side of caution. So here's a type of stretch. So you just start to push it back. You feel your hamstring? And what I was talking about with my head on the inside, as strange as it may seem, it seems normal to put your head here, right? If you're going to stretch. I'd rather it be here because then his hip can't go outside the joint. You feel that? Okay. Now that's a stretch. that you'd want to hold for at least 15 seconds at the very minimum. And you can do that with the strap by pulling, like I showed you. And there's other cool things about stretches. There's stuff that I wouldn't have you do unless you're with a professional, but there's something called a Pnf stretch. So, let me see something. Just stay this, stay this. Now, I'm gonna stretch to you. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to press against my hand as hard as you can. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and relax. Did you see how much further I got his leg? That's good in a rehab setting or with a professional, but it shows that he has the ability to get, see, he can't bring it back on his own like that. Bring your leg towards you. You can't get it to where I had it, right? You can put it back down. So those are 2 stretches. Would you like to stay up here, or do you want to have someone else do it? I don't know if you're hungry. You want to stay? You'll stay? Okay, so he's in it for the long haul. So what other muscles are tight on you? I know which ones are, but I want to make sure that I cover stuff that you do. Then I'll take one more round of possibilities for stretching, and then I'm just going to go through from foot to head. Is there any place that somebody wants to know how to stretch? Hip? Art? Hip? All right. I didn't even know you're here. Welcome. Okay, so for the hip, there's a lot of different stretches. So if you have a hip, what I like to do for the hip, straighten this leg. I like to go very passive. Just do a little bit of motion like this for a little while. It could take time. If you have a tight hip, this is not really, this could be very intense. Are your hips tight? So for the hip stretches, this is one. Okay, so this stretch that I'm doing right now, this helps the lower back. But I want you to watch his right leg. Can you see his right leg from there? This will tell me how tight his right hip flexor is. Hip flexors are tight because you're sitting all the time. Hip flexors are what are responsible for a long stride. If your hip flexors are too tight, your steps are shorter because this doesn't allow you to come all the way back to here. So by doing this, I press, you see his leg coming up? That leg. You see it rising? So if I were to just hold it there, can you feel the top of your leg? You do? Those aren't tears, are they? No, that's something you're not supposed, don't ever stretch to the point of tears. Okay. So this is stretching out his hip flexor. Now, I'm gonna put your leg down. Now you just stay put. Yeah, stay flat or whatever's comfortable, because I'm gonna show a couple of hip flexor stretches without, that you can do on your own. One is just standing on one leg. It's almost like doing a lunge. If you have the balance to do it, back leg is like this. Drop your hip down, hip forward, and lean back. And I got a hell of a stretch in my hip flexor. It's just like that. The other one would be to sit down, do the same thing. Another way to stretch the hip flexors out, another way to stretch the hip flexors out is an active exercise. Have anybody in here not been to physical therapy? Raise your hand if you've never been to a physical therapist. So you haven't. Have you ever needed to? Yes? You're one of those, huh? Well, if you've been to physical therapy, I'd imagine they've taught you how to do a bridge. They may or may not have said what's going to come from a bridge. Have you ever done a bridge? So this is going to be a modified bridge with assistance because there's a ball here. So having the ball here, shortening the lever arm is going to make a bridge easier. When he does a bridge, what does a bridge work? No, it actually does the opposite side. It's everything facing down. Everything facing up is why I'm doing this today. What happened? What do you think is being done of everything facing up when he's doing a bridge? What do you think? What's my topic? Stretching. So lift your hips up as high as you can. Can you feel your hip flexors stretching right now? Up in here, all these muscles. That's where we have tightness, some spasticity or weakness, and come down. This is something that is a lot easier to do if you're closer to whatever the resistances, whatever the places you're putting your feet on. It's not that far of a lift. Was it easy? Yes. Okay, so now he's working his glutes, he's working his lower back, he's stretching his hip flexors, and he's stretching his abdominal muscles. So now that answered the question about the abs. Now put this, you can put them down. Okay, I'm going to show you another way for a hip flexor stretch. Hip flexors hold us down. They slow our economy too. Because when there's a line at the grocery store because everybody's walking slow, not as many people are going to buy stuff. They're going to leave early. And with short hip flexors, you can't move fast. So I want you to scoot over this way a little bit. A little bit more. I'm not going to let you fall. Okay, I want you to grab your right knee with your hand, pull it towards your chest. And you see how your leg's coming up and not so much? It's pretty loose, it's good. But now while this is something you can do if you're in bed. Watch this. Hang on. Just let it hang. Now pull. You really feel that? You probably feel that more than one. Yeah, it's the whole, everything from here to here is stretching. All you need for that is an arm and a bed. All right, move that down. Okay, what's another body part that you guys were asking about? So I've got from the posterior side, I'm gonna go on to the hip in a second more. So I did the calf, hamstring, you saw the hamstring stretch. The other hamstring stretches, like the hurdler stretches, where you have your one leg in like this, laying down, reaching for your toe, or both legs spread out, reaching forward. So another hip stretch, this is gonna stretch your glutes, the muscles you're all sitting on right now. The biggest, strongest muscle in your body that you happen to sit on most of the day and not use. But it's the most important muscle because it's the strongest muscle. And if you have weak glutes, you probably have bad back. So a glute stretch, now I'm going to show you the way I would do it where you guys can do it from a seated position or from a laying position. So from a seated position, if you're sitting, all you have to have is a chair and a leg. Okay? Cross your leg, lean forward, that stretches your glute. For him, I'm going to go slow here because you're going to feel it. Can you guys hear me out there? Do you feel your glute? His right leg, his glute is really on stretch right now. So what I like to do is I do this stretch, I hold it for a little while with people. Then after that, straighten this leg. Scoot back over a little bit. Because if you fall off, we were told we got to push everyone that falls off behind the stage. Just a push this way, that's going to loosen up the hips. It's also working the IT band. Can you feel it along the side or up here? So people have very tight IT bands and that restricts your gait. Everything that's tight in your legs is going to restrict your gait. One thing that stretching may or may not help, it really doesn't as much, but that's the coordination. However, if you're loose enough to walk when you once were too tight to do a normal stride, it might help with coordination, but that's a little bit different. That's more neurological than muscular. And then the adductors, the part of your legs that come together, adding, there's adductors and abductors. Do you know the difference between the two? Adductor and abductor? I learned it by my college professor telling me that ADD is bringing something together, adding, and ABD, a bad date. A bad date, what do? You leave, right? So that's going apart from each other. So this would be adduction, would be adding them together, and abduction would be this. You feel that? So that's stretching the inside of the leg. Now, you can bring your legs back up. To stretch your quads, the front. This can be done laying down. I've got balance, so I can stand and do it. You can hold it like this. If you were to hold it and bring it behind your body, then you're stretching your hip flexors and your quadriceps. So those are two stretches. Now another stretch for the hip and side of the body You got to be careful with this one, just don't go too hard. Nothing goes fast when you're stretching. Don't do it too fast because the person will be injured. Can you feel your left side of your body? And then this way to even it out, getting the right side of the body. And that's going to get the IT band, it's going to get your sides, your obliques. Then we've got a stretch that's just going to be a lower back stretch, which the other ones were as well, but by putting both knees, and I'm going to push them to your chest, and pushing them to the chest. Can you guys see that okay? And that's going to stretch out the lower back. Another one for the sides and the hips, since that's the last question we have, is to just let your legs flop this way. Put this leg over this leg and relax, just let the weight hold it. He feels this, trust me. I can tell by his eyes. So those are some stretches that are helpful. I haven't gotten into upper body stretches, but I'm going to give you guys one upper body stretch that I think might be something that's important to you. I'll talk about a couple other ones, but I'm only going to go into detail with one. If you guys are at a table and you're sitting there and you're looking at your food and you're here, your chest is getting tighter. So one way is just to do this, or through a doorway, and stretch your chest muscles. The other area that people had mentioned that I heard was neck. You can sit up, because I'm going to have you do this also. So a good neck stretch. This one I came up with a while ago because it helped me, and then after I did it long enough without an injury, I worked with somebody else, but it's okay. I'm going to ask you to hold this a second. All you need is one leg and really a hand, or you can use a strap. But if you were to put your hand and clasp it over the knee, and then relax your neck and shoulders, and without pulling your knee towards you, you're going to use your knee to push down. Right now, all my muscles in my neck that are connected up to my mastoid process, which is back here, I don't know if you can see them stretching, but I sure can feel it. Now I want you to do it. So now relax your upper body and just with your knee pull forward so you feel all that. Is it getting it? You guys would be surprised. When your neck is tight, this is something that's an incredible relaxing, but I would put a little bit of warmth on it before you do it too hard because it is your neck. So thank you very much. You're an awesome help. I hope that you help them as much as you help me. So enjoy your meal. All right, so that's flexibility 101. With the stability ball, you can stretch your hip flexor by doing that and rolling it back. Whether you have good or bad balance, I would hold on to something. So if you were here, not only are you stretching your hip flexor, but you're learning how to do a single-legged squat. So you get the good with the good. That's what comes with stretching. And if you can do it properly, you're going to feel better. And if you feel better, you're going to be a happier person. And everyone in here, let me just tell you, I watched every one of you walk in here, or however you got in here. You all look fantastic, and I want you to be happy that you look fantastic. Don't ever be offended by someone telling you look great. Because if I told you all, you know what, you walked in smooth, but you look like hell, don't be offended by someone telling you that you look good. Because we know in this room how we feel between our ears and the messages that we're giving ourselves and the struggle that we do day in, day out, because we have something that we didn't ask for, but we can handle it. And we can handle it better than the next person who doesn't have it, and that's why we have it. That's the only way that I can rationalize having an illness. That's got me on the stage speaking to you guys, hopefully telling you information that you're going to bring home that's positive, that you're going to be able to do more, and you want to do more. And the only way you can do more is by doing more. Do you get it? Not by thinking, not by wanting, and not by trying. Because when the day ends and you can say to yourself, I tried, you're basically saying, I accepted failure today by trying. Do. If you do, you have something to say you did. You know, you don't say you tried or you attempted or you thought about it or you wanted it. You know how much want weighs, right? I'm not going to say the whole saying, but it's true. So, with all that being said, does anybody, is it?
Well, let's give Jeff a round of applause.
Thank you, guys.
That's a good way to say he's, ready for Q&A, okay? So, does anybody have a question? Does anybody have a question for Jeff? Because if anybody has a question, I need you to mask up, right?
Any questions?
Okay, sorry, it's no questions. Everybody learned everything. Okay, thank you again, Jeff.
Thank you, guys.